that is the Gold Cup hero. Two of the most admirable chasers you could possibly wish to see.
Relentless, remorseless, and pounding Cordon Star into submission.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the RaceHour podcast, brought to you with our friends at bookmakers.co.uk. I am here in the towers of bookmakers.co.uk. It's myself, Dean Ryan, with Dermot Nolan. Dermot, how are you?
I'm all good, Dean. How are you?
Very well indeed. No Paddy Aspel this week, but we found a very, well, let's say a super replacement. It's Mr. Stephen Cass is back on the RaceHour. And then
Dean.
Stephen, you were there, then you weren't there.
What happened there?
I don't know. You're there though, Stephen. It's good to have you.
Hold on now. Am I here? I'm here. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Good to be back. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. We thought we'd get you in for your specialist subject, which is Cheltenham, not Dundalk.
Because I have different notes here now, and I have a few lined up for Dundalk tomorrow night. But okay, I'll bluff my way through some English 3-mile handicaps that I don't really know anything about. But
Well, 3 mile handicaps have become a bit of a speciality on the RaceHour the last few weeks. We had another winner at the weekend, Dermo, with Give Me a Copper going in.
We most certainly did, and an old each way double landed as well. So
a snaky one. A snaky one, yeah. The old dirty each way double. But it's been a good few weeks. But again, Dean, I am getting worried that we're kind of like a handicapper now that's kind of reaching the top of our levels, and you're worried that we're kind of running out of road now. Yeah, and that'll probably come to the fore over the 3 really good days racing at Cheltenham, where we're going to go through about 15 races and probably find nothing. But let's see how we get on. First thing that we always do on the RaceHour, of course, is go through some of the superstars that were out the weekend, and I think that's a fair label to play on what happened over the weekend. Some absolute monsters were running around. I might kick off with a couple that went in at short odds at Wincanton, Reserve Tank and Fusel Raffles, Dermo. Yeah, both of them were obviously decent. Fusel Raffles was made to work very, very hard. But again, it's like he doesn't have all that much experience in the bank. He was racing against the winner from the previous season, or a decent winner from the previous winner in Grand Sancy. And whilst he obviously struggled to put that horse away, that horse has plenty more experience. The 4-year-old juveniles from last season, they are looking decent so far. We'll move on to Fakir Dodores afterwards. I'm not sure whether there's a champion hurdle obviously amongst them, but the ones that have come out so far have been winning, and you can't ask any more than that, really, can you? Stephen, those two, Reserve Tank and Fusel Raffles, I don't really need to put them together, but Fusel Raffles probably one that can step forward plenty for that. Henderson was saying wasn't ready, then suddenly a few days before the race was ready and blooming, so I would expect plenty more to come from Fusel Raffles.
Like of the two, Reserve Tank and Fusel Raffles, I'd be more negative on Fusel Raffles. I thought he didn't look like he seems to have an engine on him, but I don't know, was he enjoying himself out there? And I'd be a little suspect of last year's form that he has. I don't like grouping all horses together and saying, last year's juveniles or last year's novel chasers as a bunch. I think you take each horse and its form and merits. Like his form last year, the Kempton form is absolute muck, the Adonis. Like they were 120 horses he was beaten. So he should be beaten by 10 lengths to be a 145 horse. And he beat Fakir Dodores at Punchestown. There was nothing in behind. But Fakir Dodores, he had a hard season up to that. So, like, he ran at Aintree as well, didn't he? Yeah. So, he's been Cheltenham Aintree and Cheltenham in January. And, I wouldn't say it was a top health Fakir Dodores. So, the jury be out now on Fusel Raffles for me. I think it's going to be a big step up from him. He's going to find £15 from where he is, or even £20. I'd be backing him not to do it. I loved Reserve Tank. I thought, he was very efficient over his jumps. I like to see that. He's saving a lot of energy. But 10 to 1 for the GLT wouldn't interest me, to be honest. He's only 5, so this fella could be. I hate the next year horse. I always think he'd go for whatever this year, but I do think he could be a Gold Cup horse next year. Yeah, certainly has the stamp and scope to end up that way, and I think they might get one more run in and then put him away for spring campaign, like they did drop him in at the back end of last season. So I'd say he wants good ground. They might do similar with Reserve Tank this time round. Let's talk about Champ. I thought it was very impressive. Actually, I wasn't expecting to be impressed, Dermo, but I was. Yeah, he was excellent. Really good jumps at times, and for me, the price of 7-2 for the RSA is one of the worst prices.
I can imagine out there. I can see why they've landed on the conclusion. I can see why they've landed there, but you're taking 7-2 about a horse who I'm just not sure an RSA is really going to suit him. I think he's very exuberant. I think he's jumping kind of a bit like Lost in Translation. I think he'll turn up to a Kempton at Christmas. He'll win very well. He'll be much shorter then for the RSA at Cheltenham, and I think he'll be worth taking on all day long. I'm not questioning the horse's ability. He's clearly a very talented horse, but I just wouldn't like him at the end of 3 miles in the RSA coming up the hill with the way he travels so sweetly and the way he jumps so kind of bold. I just wouldn't like him at all for it.
I wanted to take him on. I think I said this on the pod a few weeks ago, and I place-laid him, so that didn't go well. But there's a big future ahead of this horse, Stephen.
Yeah, there is, but like if he was mine, he'd be going. This might sound crazy, but I'd be going for the champion hurdle. Like he can absolutely tank into races, and he has a turn of foot. They tried to stretch him out to 3 last year. Like it worked at Aintree, didn't work at Cheltenham really. I'm not sure he was, or sorry, it was the Ballymore he ran at Cheltenham, wasn't it? I don't think he was natural at all over his fences. Like he got over from A to B very well. Like Dermot was talking about Lost in Translation. The thing about Lost in Translation is he loves the game. He attacks the fences, and while he's exuberant, he's doing it, but he's doing it naturally. Whereas I think Champs, his technique is a bit forced. And while he got over from A to B fine, he was kind of hanging into them a bit, and he was kind of popping them at speed, which is a weird. He's got a funny technique of doing it. If Paddy was here, he'd give us a better steer into it, but I wouldn't like him at all for any race over fences. Like he'd probably win a couple of races, but at Cheltenham, no chance. Couldn't have him on my mind.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you. I think that will be a play out of the season that I'm going to stick with for now. Let's talk about a couple of hurdlers that came about. Andy Dufresne was out and about, Dermo, and again, I use that word again, impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. He's just very strong, isn't he? Just the really behind the bridle the whole way. The horse in second, the Henry de Bromhead horse, that actually ran a huge race as well. So there could be a decent amount of depth to that field, and but he just put them away so easily. Gordon has a ferocious amount of novices down there this season, and it'll be splitting all them come the end of the year will be the hard factor to do there. But he's another horse who just looks like he could be anything at all. He really could.
Stephen, if you're watching all this racing from the UK as a trainer of a promising novice hurdler, you're pretty sick, aren't you? All the power seems to be this side of the water in Ireland.
It does. Like Gordon and then Willie, we don't know really what Willie's novice hurdler is going to be, because he'll have bought ones over from France and everything. So there's going to be any amount from. What I would say is, if you gave me a price on Gordon not winning any of the 3 championship races in novices, I'd be interested in that. Like everyone just gets carried away this time of year. They're not all going to win, but Andrew Dufresne is a machine. Like the horse he beat at Down Royal has won 2 bumpers since. That Cobbler's Way that was second to him the last day. Like whatever about Andy Dufresne jumping super, travelling and quickening, that was impressive on its own. But Cobbler's Way is a really good horse. Like I think he'll be a 145 hurdler, and he beat him 11 lengths. Cobbler's Way won a bumper. Henry's don't win bumpers, and he won a bumper by 11 lengths. And the bumper he won, the second and third one since. So it's all stacking up. I think Andy Dufresne's an absolute machine. Abacadabras, I hate that name. There's no R in that, It's Abacadabras. I wouldn't be as keen on him now for a Cheltenham race. He looks too fast. Like he's got a real unusual action that he turns his legs over very quickly, like a real fast little choppy action. They normally don't stay, those kind of horses. I think what the Time Boys would call that their cadence. I'd like to see his cadence in that. Sprinters normally have that they're hitting the ground a lot with their feet, and if you look at him, he's doing that. He'd be more of an Aintree horse or a speed track like Punchestown. Wouldn't like him for Cheltenham, but he's good as well. I don't think it was as good a race, but definitely Andy Dufresne. He's an absolute monster, I think.
Yeah, hashtag it.
Did I lose you?
No. Hashtag it. Keith said there as well that the jumping needs to improve, definitely, is what Keith was saying, and he said that this horse is a ferociously fast horse. So that does back up everything there that Steve was saying. And he's to me, I really like the performance. I think he'd be perfect for a race at Kempton or Aintree, as Stephen was saying, but something like the Supreme at the end of the race, yeah, you could see him maybe gasping for air a small bit, but you'd have to see more from him, because his jumping, if he gets his jumping sorted, you never know where the ceiling is for this lad either, though.
Okay, before we come on to one of Dermo's favourite horses in training who ran on the Sunday, a few other ones from Ireland to tidy up. Likes of Surin won the Fishery Lane. Tiger Tap Tap was a bit disappointing there. We had Bacardi's come out and win really well in the Liz Mullen Grade 2. We had Ballyoshin win the Fortria again. And we must talk about Fakir Duderi and the Mellon Beginners Chase, which was a pretty hot race, Dermo. Out of those, which ones did you want to pick up on?
Yeah, Fakir Duderi was fantastic, really was. Just, you have to be very wary of him, everyone home obviously as well, is that he's getting plenty of weight now this calendar year, and that will stop after Christmas when he becomes a 5-year-old. But his jumping was superb. He was really he spent very little time in the air. He was just very clean over them. It kind of didn't touch a twig. And whilst Mellon ran a very good race, there's absolutely no doubt about it. I don't like novice chasers that have had that long over hurdles, and Fakir Duderi to me just kind of looked he just looked a bit more sprightly. He'll be interesting now, a bit like Larisberg. He could just keep going, and at the moment he's the Arkle horse, but we haven't seen much in that division to get too carried away just yet. But himself and Mellon definitely ran a very good race, and just for a horse who kicking on for the rest of the season, you could kind of half forget him. But Ballyoshin was some sight on Sunday. He was absolutely outstanding, and it's great for when horses like that's his big target of the year most of the time. He's won it twice in a row now, and he just ran those ex-novices into the floor with his jumping. He jumped them all into submission, and that's the game we loved him.
Yeah, Gold Cup landed in a way really for Ballyoshin at the weekend. Stephen, I pick you up on that Fakir Duderi's and Mellon race, because it's you get lots of beginners chases where you have one really good horse and they kind of get things all their own way and they come away and win, and you really concentrate on the jumping and everything. But this race had pace, then it slowed up, then it had pace again, and Mellon couldn't actually get to the 4-year-old. But I was pretty impressed with both of them. I'd take them both forward.
Yeah, there's nothing really more to say on Fakir Duderi. It was very impressive, and Mellon, he is a bit stuffy in his first run of the season, so it was a fair run from him. So to be honest, they'll probably be 1-2 in the betting come the Racing Post Chase or whatever it is on the 26th at Leopardstown. So it'd be interesting to see how that's priced up. I don't think I've anything insightful to say other than that he had to be impressed with Fakir Duderi's, and it'll be interesting to see Mellon the last day or the next day. So I'd be, if Mellon was 3-1 and Fakir was evens, I'd back Mellon against him the next day. It'll depend on the betting. Yeah. And I've no interest in backing Fakir Duderi's at 10s for an Arkle or anything like that. I just, the Cheltenham betting and that point, it's just nothing really exciting me. I don't like backing horses at single figures or anything at this stage. It just doesn't do it for me.
Sure.
But so I'd be leaving him alone.
Are they writing the epitaph for Apple's Jade too soon, Dermo? I know I mentioned that Bacardi's went and won that Liz Mullen. Apple's Jade's just probably, after such a great career and so many big wins, it's easy to draw a line. I don't think there should be a line drawn just yet, should there?
No, there shouldn't. And Keith, in this week's blog on bookmakers.co.uk, was at pains to say that as well, that he was mentioning that the cold weather seems to really bring into gear, and there's frost on the horizon, so that might help. But I think sometimes with horses, no matter how,
I know you're Keith's best buddy now, Dermo, but that's some load of bollocks.
It's an incredible statement. I have no idea what it means.
It was only 6 degrees on Sunday, so if it's 2 degrees, you'll operate 25 pounds better.
But it's one of those things where I think no matter how old a horse starts, they have a certain amount of time at that top level. I think Apple's Jade has been in some ferocious battles. That race at Aintree last year was a really, really grueling affair. And I just think eventually, she's going since she's 3. I just think eventually it just catches up to them. I think Apple's Jade has been a ferocious mare, but it would be really a top training performance now to bring her back from where they are.
She's fully entitled, as we all are at some point, to say I think about enough.
I think with her, right, that if you're Gordon and you've had 2 years where she has been sensational in the autumn and tailed off then in the spring, the logical thing to do is just to basically work her on the track in her first run back, and it's to leave an awful lot to work on gearing her up to March as the training target. So I'd say they've just trained her totally different. And if you look at it that way, she didn't run without any enthusiasm. She still looked like she was putting her heart into it and trying hard. She just didn't look fit enough. I think this horse now for the Hatton's Grace is going to be a great proposition, because hopefully Classical Dream might even go for that and make a market, and you'll have Super Sunday. And if she's something like 5-1 for Hatton's Grace, I'd definitely be backing her, because I thought she showed enough on Sunday that if she was just a bit stuffy, which she should have been, if that's how you're going to train her, she should come on an awful lot, and I wouldn't give up on her at all.
I don't know though, Stephen, whether anything much actually has trained, because even Ruby said it as well on Racing TV, that he was watching out for her because he would have had an association with the horse before, and he said just before the race, Keith said this as well, and Gordon has also said it, they just said that she was far too quiet in herself, that, you know, she wasn't kicking anything and everything else, because as Jamie Codd said at a preview night before, you know, she's on form and she's being a right little bitch, like, you know, and that is the way she is. Before the race, they all remarked it, that she was just unbelievably quiet in herself and everything else, and that she just wasn't herself. So it could simply be that. I really hope that it is, but I just think sometimes these horses can cry enough, and when they start as young as she has, it can be hard to kind of keep going the way that the horses that start at 5 or 6 might.
Do you think maybe, and this is going to sound weird, she knew that Honeysuckle was about to reappear and just thought, do you know what, lads, game is up? What do we make of Honeysuckle at Fairyhouse?
Honeysuckle was absolutely superb. Look, we've been wax lyrical about this horse for a long time. She didn't beat a whole pile. I really hope that Easy Games Mark hasn't been kind of destroyed by that, but I can't imagine it was. But just her now in Hatton's Grace as well will be absolutely superb. I missed Henry's comments after the race, so I'm not sure whether what the plan is with her, but she'll go for the Mayor's Hurdle. I don't see this logic of sending her into the Champion Hurdle this season. I know Stephen Cass won't like that, but I think she has to stay in her own division. She missed the festival last year, and I think still the 9-2 that's there is quite good value if it was that way on the day day.
Would you be tempted by a Champion Hurdle, Mr. Stephen Cass, as Demo suggested you might be?
I will have to see her. Like, she's never been in against anything more than a 140 something horse, so you'll have to see her, you know. If she goes into Hatton's Grace and she's the same price as Apple's Jade, I would be having a big bet on Apple's Jade in the match bet market, because she has a massive jump to make still. I know she looks impressive, but you know, she's bullying from the front, and there's still a big jump for a mare to go into open company and compete, and the likelihood is she wouldn't be able to do it. Like, you know, we always have these high purses, and generally they don't do it. So she really is a high purse now, so I'd be she could be one making markets for other things. But yeah, you have to love her, but I think the Mayor's Hurdle will be the race for her at the moment. That's where you'd be going. But if she goes and wins the Hatton's Grace and Irish Champion Hurdle, and if then they go for a Mayor's Hurdle, then I'd go down the road to Henry de Bromhead and I'll knock his block off, because that's fun.
33s and 40s around for a Champion Hurdle. I hope they stick to the mares, because I'm already aboard that train, and I think it's only going to get a shorter price as we go through the season. Great to have her back. Great for the RaceHour, as she kind of sponsors the whole podcast, that she is back and in full working order. Anything else from the weekend we wanted to pick out before we do take a break, and then take a look at 3 fascinating days at Cheltenham and a little bit of Punchestown action in the second half?
Yeah, you missed out old Santini there from the listing, but he's I absolutely adore this horse. I've loved him since his first run when he beat Chef de Zobo. There's no doubt he's slow, but my good God, was he slow last Sunday. Now he idled, etc, but I was of the opinion that he's not as drastically slow as people thought he was. Like he was a horse that won over 2.5 at Cheltenham at the Beprite meeting 2 years ago, beating Black Up no less. You can't be that slow a horse if you're able to do that. But last Sunday he just looked really slow. Now I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. He looks the type that kind of takes a while to get fit, so hopefully now. And I was thrilled to hear Nicky Henderson say that he won't run in a King George now. He shouldn't be anywhere near a King George. He's not a horse to ever consider running in a King George. He should have been, in my opinion, in the Hennessy, but that horse seems to really have become that race seems to have become very unpopular now all of a sudden. But Santini's still my idea of a horse to take forward for the Gold Cup, but he needs to show an awful lot more next time.
You know, if he turned up in a King George, it's like turning up for a Formula 1 Grand Prix with a Volkswagen and hoping you can still see them when you come around the first corner. Stephen, what did you make of Santini?
I didn't see it live and then watched the whole race on replay, so it's one of those ones, you know, everyone's negative on social media.
You already knew, yeah.
Well, you already know, but then you see it and you go, that's not as bad as everyone was saying. People tend to overreact to social media. I thought it wasn't too bad. Like, I'd say he is a stuffy horse, but my issue is the form of those RSA horses. If you there's one piece of form where Delta Work beat Larichburg and Jets and Cadmium in the 2.5 mile. What's the name of the race?
Drimore.
Yeah, that's the only good piece of form any of those have.
Yeah.
Like, because they all just came up against each other and looked like they were three kind of superstars in an RSA, but they might just all be 155 horses. If you take out that piece of form with Larichburg, which might have been his trip, then, and you take the notion they're all 155 horses. Le Bagawa was beating them all. He couldn't get anywhere near, lost in translation, destroyed, top of the game at Aintree. I'd say Le Bagawa is an average 155 horse as well. I'd say they're all kind of 155 horses, and Santini's 163 rating flatters him, and he would have been beaten in a Hennessy. From what I hear, OK Corral is Henderson's Hennessy horse anyway. I thought it was fine, but I just think this fella is, next year it'll be a national campaign, because I'd say he's a grade 2 3-mile chaser. He might go close in a pillar, but he won't go anywhere near getting to 170. That's what I think about all three of them. I think top of the game as well, the same. I think all three of them are probably Delta Work. Probably the reality is they're all just 155 horses and they're all overhyped.
Yeah, I think that's very valid, and you may well be proved to be very true this season. I mean, I know we won't see top of the game, but we've seen Delta Work, we've seen Santini now. The best form of those novices last year, it all seems to be around Defi de Soy and Lost in Translation, and of course they could have gone up in trip, but they didn't. They stay where they were. So, okay, that's interesting stuff. Santini's been given the Welsh national curse there, Dermo, just so you know. It's a RaceHour thing now, becoming a tradition that any horse that isn't up to Gold Cup standard could win a Welsh Grand National. We'll put Santini in that box. Okay, we are going to take a break. When we come back, 3 cracking days at Cheltenham to discuss, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and a bit of Punchestown thrown in. So let's take a break here.
You're listening to the RaceHour podcast, brought to you by bookmakers.co.uk. Check out bookmakers.co.uk each and every day for tips, news and the best odds for horse racing. Looking for a new bookmaker and the best sign-up offers in the industry? And you'll find that at bookmakers.co.uk, sponsors of the RaceHour.
Okay, and welcome back to the RaceHour podcast, brought to you with our friends at bookmakers.co.uk. Stephen Cass has joined us this week. Dermot Nolan is here, and it's myself, Dean Ryan, in the towers of bookmakers.co.uk. We're going to look at Friday, Saturday and Sunday of the Cheltenham meeting coming up. Really looking forward to this. It does, well, let's take a look at 3 races on the Friday. Might start with the kind of consolation Bet Victor handicap chase. It's not the Bet Victor Gold Cup or the old Paddy Power as it was. This is the kind of prequel, the previous race for it. Bundoran heads the market here. Do It for the Village is in there. Brellan Das is in there. Magic Saint, I know it's got a couple of entries, could line up here for Paul Nicholls. And Nicky Henderson's horse that should have been the Grand Annual horse for last year, What's Wrong With You, is lined up for this. Dermo, do you want to kick us off with the first race we're going to look at Cheltenham?
Yeah, so as we'll mention a good few times throughout this podcast, a lot of these horses are double and triple entered. So from an anti-post point of view, definitely hold fire an awful lot of time. But there's one horse here who I was very interested to see over the summer that he has gone to Ian Williams. He only has the one entry, which is for this race, is River Wild. This is the kind of a horse that Ian Williams does very well with. He slipped down the handicap a bit. He was a horse that Nicky Henderson used to think an awful lot of. He was third in a Supreme Novices Hurdle last season. On his debut over fences, he beat Hell's Kitchen, which is decent enough form. And then, so he comes into this race, and it's as simple as the fact that if Ian Williams can get him back, which he's done with plenty of horses, I think he's very well weighted. I think he's on a lovely mark, and the old change of scenery might just sort him out. So at decent enough odds of 9-1, I'd fancy River Wild to bounce back somewhat.
Yeah, a bit double figures around there, a bit of a sleeper perhaps, River Wild for that contest, as you say, flipped over to Ian Williams. Stephen, I'll give you next crack.
The one I will back, I don't think it's a very good race, so the one I'm going to back is Croco Bay, the 12-year-old, the Grand Annual winner. He's only ran 5 times since 2017, finishing third, fifth in a Grand Annual, second, first in the Grand Annual, and third at Punchestown. And these horses that don't run much and they're old, you can't be running them half fit. Like, this fella will have to be absolutely flying fit. I've gone through the pace angle on the race. There doesn't seem to be any front runners, so he is a front runner. I'd say he'll get out. He'll be mad fit. He's only £3 higher than when he won the Grand Annual, or £4. He went to Punchestown after the Grand Annual, and he beat Bundoran there as well, and he's only £1 worse off with him than the Grand Annual weights. Bundoran is 4-1 favourite. This fella's 11-12-1. I don't think they're going to be plotting him for another Grand Annual at 13. So the fact they brought him back, he's going to be mad fit. I'd just give him a win only squeak at 11s or 12s. I'd chance him, because I don't think it's a great race.
Interesting shout, the 12-year-old Croco Bay there. There was one I wanted to highlight in here, and it is, again, doubly declared. Could go in the feature, the Bet Victor Gold Cup, but that's Emon and Shock for David Pipe. You have to remember, it wasn't that far behind Cyril Deluc at the festival. I think the mark is still... went to all the parties last year. If they've got that right, they might see this as a nice way to get back on track. And I'd imagine it contesting some of the bigger handicaps again. That mark will need to rise. They'll need to win somewhere. I think Eamon and Shock is an interesting shout for me. So we've managed to find 3 in the field there for a very competitive first race to look at.
Eamon and Canuck.
Well, you know, it depends where you're from.
Hill of the Hill. Isn't it? Is it Hill or Forest?
Forest, is it?
Oh, Jesus, we're embarrassing
We're
ourselves.
very bad now, yeah. Go on.
Get my mouth shut there. Move on there to the 225 team.
You should have just left me alone with Eamon and Shock, but let's kick on. The 225 at Cheltenham on Friday is the Steel Plate and Selections Novices Chase. Now, if this front end of this market does line up, probably the hottest novice chase you'll see in the UK so far for sure, with lights of Birchdale, Jarvis Plate, Brewing Up a Storm, Angel's Breath, Not That Fwees, Mr. Fisher. I could go on, then I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, it's could well be an absolute belter. Jarvis Plate's the one coming into this who is bringing it in the fitness angle. Beat Reserve Tank first time out, but I wouldn't read too much into that. Puppy Power was at absolute pains again in his interview with Racing TV to say that the ground that day was far too soft for him. Fergal O'Brien Yard, since the move, is absolutely flying. They are throwing in winners left, right and centre. But Jarvis Plate last season was beaten about 19 lengths by Birchdale. So if Birchdale can jump a fence any way at all, you think that he just has the ability angle over that horse. Jarvis Plate is a lovely horse who will win races, but there's horses in here who might just be that kind of little bit better. If Brewing Up a Storm was to turn up here, I'd be extremely interested. But just at the odds, I'd love to know if he's definitely running our old buddy Angel's Brett Dean. I definitely wouldn't be backing him anti-post. I'd wait till the day, but if these were the odds on the day, we know that he's a very talented horse. It all happened a bit too quickly for him last season, and he could well kick on, but it's kind of race, Dean, that I'll be grabbing a cup of tea and watching for the future, as opposed to getting too heavily involved with.
Yeah, it might be a no-bet race, and obviously we don't know the final makeup of it yet. Stephen, the 5-year-olds are fascinating in here, aren't they? The likes of Angel's Breath, Mr. Fisher, Birchdale. They're relatively, well, obviously they're untested as chasers, but they were pretty much relatively untested to the hilt as hurdlers as well.
Yeah, but the problem with this race is you just haven't a clue what's going to run. So, like, Brewing Up a Storm, they've said he's going to go. They actually will have declarations for Taunton tomorrow, so we should know if he's going to Taunton tomorrow. He's not running. He's the one I would have backed. So then it comes down to Birchdale and Jarvis Plate, and Jarvis Plate, I think, can. That race the last day just fell apart. The two in front, Posh Trish and Reserve Tank, just went too hard. I think Jarvis Plate, you saw it in the Ballymore. We saw it when he ran in the good race of January that Dermo mentioned, that Birchdale and Brewing Up a Storm went clear. He's not able to lie up at any bit of a pace. So if there's a good horse in front that won't come back to him, I just don't like him as a horse. I don't think he's good enough. He'll never be a 165 horse. So I'd rather take something against him. Not that Fuise was good the last day running on, so the trip might suit him. But I have no strong opinion on it. Birchdale's not a horse I'm mad on. Jarvis Plate's not a horse I'm mad on, but God knows what's going to run against him. Maybe Chance Not That Fuise, because he really was running on strong the last day behind Angel's Breath. He's 7-1, but if Angel's Breath runs, you'd expect him to beat him again. So I have no great opinion on it, to be honest. Okay,
you're a bit disappointed, Derma, that Angel's Breath doesn't stay over hurdles. I'm surprised they've gone immediately novice chasing, given the amount of I won't call it the amount of confidence in it as a supreme novice hurdle type, that they haven't decided to go and prove that straight over fences.
Straight over fences with him. He must be schooling well at home for that, because Nicky Henderson doesn't make that decision lightly. I still haven't cashed out my bet for the champion hurdler, because Nicky Henderson has done this before, where he's taken a horse. Yeah, you know, even Brain Power as well was kind of taken out of that job quite quickly. Big fan of Angel's Bread, as we know, but just I don't like horses starting off either, to be honest with you. First run over fences at Cheltenham, so it'll be interesting to see if he does lie up here, but this is the definition of a watching race, really. Okay,
bookmakers are very cruel, I find, when they price these kind of things up, because I look at it now and I see that race run in 10 minutes time, I'm back in Angel's Breath, and only because I see a big 5-1 next to its name, which just makes me a bit of a fool. But that's where I would be going if it was run immediately. There is a cross-country race on that day, Stephen, probably your highlight of the weekend.
yeah, you know me well, yeah, I haven't a clue. I just thought the favourite, he's 5-1, I thought he'd be about 2-1, and I'd say he'd go off about 2-1, the French horse, what's his name, Urgent de Gregan or whatever. So him. The other one in it that I did have a quick cursory look because I'd be on the podcast, Chick name was 5th and was travelling well behind Tiger Road in 2018. Like, he had the same prep he had last year, where he had an okay season over 2-3 at Chepstow, and he was well beaten, but he came on a bit last year. He's only 7. I'm kind of clutching at straws here now, maybe him, but I'd go for the favourite at 5s. Like, he'd surely be shorter than that. He's a mile clear of these guys. I know it's a handicap, but they still have to be able to jump and get around these. The one I was looking at was T for 2. Like, you'd think he's really well handicapped on 130 or whatever the hell he's on, but if you watch back last year's cross country, he hated it. And then when they went for him and started pushing him on at the 20th fence or so, he fell the minute they started trying to get him into the race. He started passing horses. So if you read the Compton run, it sounds, this sounds promising, but if you watch it back, he didn't enjoy the game at all there. Yeah. So I don't think there's much in the race, so that's why I just chanced the French horse coming over at 5s. But I wouldn't have a strong opinion.
Okay, so Urgent de Gregan, or whatever it is called at the top of that market, probably does look a little bit overpriced given what we know about how it can operate around this unique element of the Cheltenham racecourse. T for 2 definitely has unfinished business at this if it ever does want to enjoy this kind of contest. And one of my favourite horses, Dermo, Yanworth, is back, and I imagine this is going to be the king of the banks. So I'm a Yanworth fan for the weekend. Yeah,
I don't know how you could be. He couldn't jump a hurdle right, and then he couldn't jump a fence right.
All he's been waiting for is one of these big cheese wedges.
That's
all he needed.
They still take jumping, all this, you know.
Knock him over. He's a big lad.
I hope it wakes him up, but yeah, look, if that last race was a watching race, this race is just go out and cook your dinner race, and by the time you're done by the time you're finished your third course, they'll be turning the final bend. I really enjoy these races. Saying that, but from a punting point of view, I avoid it every single time.
I think it was 3 votes for Yanworth there. Looks like nap of the weekend for that cross country. Shall we move on to Saturday, unless there is anything else for Friday? Stephen, I will give you a chance to chat about Dundalk on Friday at the end, because I know that you will have some insight for that. So we will keep that for the end of it. Let's crack on then with
the other one. Can I give one for Friday?
Of course.
In the Ballymore Novice Hurdle. Now, I don't think he's going to run, but if he does, and the prices are as they are, at the moment, Time Hill is 2-1, Lardavant 9-2, IK Brunel 4-1. That's kind of the market for the Ballymore. That IK Brunel beat Eden DeHo, who was a good bumper horse for David Pipe the last year. He won the Ascot listed bumper. Now the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th from that bumper came out and all won after. And I think Eden DeHo looked a bit of a machine last year. He was beaten by that IK Brunel, but if you watch the race, the start of that race that he was beaten by him, none of them jumped off. They wouldn't lead, so he had to make his own running. And I think the Scud Missile did his usual thing of going a bit quickly in front, and then he was beaten 6 lengths in the end. He wasn't hard on him after IK Brunel went past. But I think up and trip, I think Eden DeHo would have a right chance of turning around the form. If he runs in this rather than the Supreme Trial on Sunday, I think 14-1 would be a massive price, because I think he's the best horse in the race. Time Hill's obviously been very good, but he's a bit of a hype merchant. I'd chance Eden DeHo if he went here. This is the kind of one I'd be keeping an eye out. If they declare and the prices go back up, like, he'll go off 6-1, but they might put him back in at 12s, 14s, which he was before the declaration. So I'd be keeping an eye on that, and I'd fancy him if he ran in this rather than the Supreme Trial.
Okay, what's the markets and the entries for that race? That's the Ballymore Trial on Friday. Okay, let's move on then to Saturday. We kick off with the 150, a bit of a marathon here, 3 miles, 3.5 furlongs. Another handicap chase. This time's a grade 3, pretty high quality as well. Ramses Detelli, I thought, was pretty impressive on return for David Pipe, albeit that was a hurdle contest, now going back over fences. You'd imagine they've got big plans around all the nationals again for Ramses Detelli. Little Rockefeller bumped into Bally Optic last time. That form looks rock solid, although pretty much put in its place. And West Approach, who... Didn't Paddy Aspel say on this podcast, Dermo, that loves a silver medal? He'll go here as well.
Absolutely adores a silver medal. Yeah, like this is as tough a handicap as you'll see. Like Ramses Detelli is one that he'll kick on all season. I was actually really impressed with him that day. Handle the ground. You can kind of be sure he'll stay. West Approach, for all that people can knock him, he'll be bang there, and he's the kind of horse that will just eventually win one of them, like Bywise eventually did. Colgree as well, he won't be stopping. Little Rockefeller doesn't know what it's like to actually stop, and kind of etc. There's one horse here though at 10-1, which is Potter's Legend, who I really like for this. This is a horse who was fourth in the Kim Weir. Seems to always run well at Cheltenham. Was fifth behind Frodon here before as well. We'll know that he'll stay. He was fourth that day in that Kim Weir. That it wasn't the best renewal, but still, he was fourth that day of 139. He runs here of 132. He'll be more than warmed up now for this race, and he's already jocked up. So you would imagine that he will be running in this under Jack Quinlan, who's riding very well of late, and just kind of with the right mark, like handles the ground, handles the track, will handle the distance. So I think he's as solid an each way bet as you might come across him.
Okay, Potter's Legend then, as you say, already jocked up. I was going to say jacked up. Jack Quinlan is aboard for Lucy Wadham. One that I also noticed that was jocked up that I think has got a big handicap exactly like this in the offing this season is Lucinda Russell's Big River, who I'd be interested in at around a double figure price. Hopefully these entries hold up, and that's what I'll be able to play at, because I think it definitely looks an each way makeup of the race. Stephen, what did you like in here? The top end, it does look strong. If those front three run, then something's going to have to improve to go and beat them, I would imagine.
Yeah, it does, but I think Ramsey Detelli's well weighted up to his mark, 154 or whatever he is, so and I'd imagine Grand National will be on his radar. You'd be thinking more Welsh National with him than today, so I'd say today's not today. You've stolen my thunder with Big River. I really fancy this guy. If you watch back the Ultima when he was fourth, he was out the back of the telly. It's two furlongs further today. He was out the back of the telly turned in, and I mean really out the back of the telly. If you watch that replay, he was up with the pace, then was maybe 15 turning in, and he flew home, finished fourth. Up another 2 furlongs today. Like you say, Derek Fox is jocked up, and there's a lot of rain forecast, and he would prefer soft ground. So I think he definitely has a handicap in him off 139. Like he was finishing in the Ultima run, and the 5th in the Scottish National were off 140, and his record fresh is the big thing here. So if he gets soft ground and fresh, his record fresh is 2-1-2-1-1 F4, where he's had a break in more than 50 days. I think this is the day for him, and I really fancy him. If you're getting around 10-1 him, win only now because he can throw in a stinker, but I think he could go off half what he is now, and I'd give him a right shout.
Yep, that's where I'd be. You've put it far more eloquently than me, though. I just suggested I think there's a big handicap in it. Hopefully it is this weekend. And he actually was travelling very well on his return at Newcastle when he did fall behind Lakeview Lad and supported in the market, sent off a favourite that day as well. Derek Fox is a solid booking for that. It's going to take a type like him to go and win that race. So that looks a fascinating race on the Saturday. It's the 150. Let's take a look then at the next race that we're going to preview, and that is the Bet Victor Gold Cup, the 225 on Saturday. Market's taken a few twists and turns with Slate House and now Cyril Delac vying for favouritism at the top here. Dermot, like I say, I'll let you go first here. I know where I'm going to go in this race, but you could make a case for many. Which one are you making a case for?
You can make a case for half the field. I actually fancy one of the favourites and one of the real outsiders in this. I've actually backed both. I think Cyril Delac, sometimes in racing we can ignore the really obvious picks, and I think he is one of them for under Lizzie Kelly. Like I just that festival form has already been franked this season with Janika coming out since. Loves the course, loves everything about it. Will be more than tough enough for the ground, for whatever is thrown at him. And whilst obviously the weights will be creeping up, and if one or two come out above him, he will end up running off a big weight, but I don't see that really bothering him. And whilst nobody likes taking prices about favourites in these races, I just think he's the real common sense pick. I'd really fancied Kalashnikov had he ran in this, but he's obviously not. So Cyril Delac is the one that I've landed on. And then one at 50 to 1 who was a real eye catcher for me last time is Demi Sang, who ran for Willie Mullins. He's gone now to the halfway house, which is Ben Haslam's yard, and Ben Haslam does a wonderful job with all these horses who go over the edge, and he seems to bring them back. This is a horse who's still only 6 years old, like is far from the finished product, and last time behind Guitar Pete, that was a serious run, was held up way out the back, drifted out to 18 to 1 before the race itself, and ran on very strongly at the end, was only about just over 6 lengths behind the front two. So whilst obviously he's 50 to 1 for a reason far from guaranteed that he'll run, I think he's more than talented that if he does eventually cop onto himself and realise that he is a racehorse, he will win races. And I think that Ben Haslam will bring him back, and I've taken 50 to 1 because it's a big enough price that you're happy enough to find out at the end of the day if it all goes wrong. Okay, Demi Sang sent to the equivalent in horse racing terms of Netflix's The Good Place. Yeah. Is that fair? That is very fair. That reference is going to go down well with the kids. Okay, Stephen, I'll let you away with the Bet Victor Gold Cup.
Yeah, like Diarmuid, I'm disappointed Kalashnikov isn't running. I really fancied him for this. I think he would have won it off 155 on his head. Like Kalashnikov's record, I know I'm going on a tangent here, right? But Kalashnikov's record, left-handed, is 1-1-1-1-2. The 2 was second in Supreme. 1-1, unseated rider. He was going fine. He didn't really unseat. He crashed into Arnoux and he fell. 1-2, and that 2 was the farce race at Aintree, that if they were jumping them, he probably would have won. So I just think they've missed a trick there. But Kalashnikov, up and trip and left-handed, like this horse could be a Gold Cup horse, and 100 to 1 for the Gold Cup is massive. I'm really disappointed they're not running him. But anyway, so I kind of have a long list of 3 or 4. Count Maribel would be the one I would like at the top of the list, because I think he was very impressive the way he won over course and distance last year, when he should have fallen at the second last. It was a miraculous recovery. And then he was 7th in the RSA when he didn't quite stay the trip. I thought the run behind lost translation while he was flattered by the proximity. He was still miles clear of the 156 rated kill to start. So he's running off 146 here. I think he's better than that. He's the obvious one to me at the top of the market, because I don't like Slade House. He went up plenty the last day. He's not consistent. Spirit of the Games has had plenty of chances. Us and them, fair enough, but I think his mark is high enough in the 150s. St. Calvados won't stay. Knockdown Noose is a head case. So I can see the case for Cyril Delac, but he's gone up £12 for that Cheltenham win. So he'd want to be a serious horse to be winning a Bet Victor with that. That's why Count Maribel would be the obvious one. The other one I would chance is Magic Saint. He's around 20 to 1 if he runs in it. That's the problem with all these races. But he went off favourite in the Grand Annual, and they must have really liked him to go 9 to 2 fav in a Grand Annual. He's probably going to be the only Paul Nicholls runner, and Paul Nicholls has won this twice with 5-year-olds in recent years. He's by Saint to Saint, and they generally stay. With the wind up, he could improve. I chance him at 20 to 1. I'd leave him alone if he was half of that. And I'm going to mention 2 more, so this is a lot of horses in one race.
It's that kind of race. Carry on.
Yeah, but these are big prices. Sky Pirate, he's 33 to 1. He'll be 50 to 1 on the day. Now, if you watch, he's been running over 3 miles all the time. If you watch the Cheltenham trial last year, he fell. The Kim Muir, he nearly looked the winner. The Kim Muir turned in, but he didn't get home. So back to 2.5 is perfect. He fell at Weatherby the last day over 2 miles 3, and he was going to win that day. So if he won that day and went up £7, he'd probably be 16 or 20 to 1 for this. But you're getting a winner without a penalty, I think, as long as the fall hasn't left a mark. He'll be the ground is a question mark with him, but if you're getting 50 to 1 about him on the morning, I'd definitely be interested in him. And finally, this is going to sound crazy, but Splash of Ginge, with all this rain coming at 50 to 1, he's now off 130. He won this race a couple of years ago off 134. They've prepped him in the same race at Weatherby that he ran in behind Guitar Pete the year he won. If he's ever going to perform again, and last year the ground was against this horse, he does want heavy ground, all the good ground last winter. Maybe there's one last hurrah in him, and I'd give him a squeak at 50 to 1 to run into a place. I think Count Maribel is the most likely winner I'd probably have a small win bet on Magic Saint. If Sky Pirates 50 to 1, I'll back him. And I will back Splash of Ginger 50 to 1. So that's kind of where I'm coming at the race. But I'm just so disappointed Kalashnikov isn't running.
You'll get a chance with Kalashnikov and something else. And perhaps that Gold Cup idea isn't the wildest as well, Stephen. I think he's a type of horse that could certainly improve for going up and trip. He is such a big old beast. I look forward to that.
And the jumping with Kalashnikov, like if you watch the Arkle, he jumped really, really well. And then he unseated when he bumped into our new...
yeah, he got no luck.
He reminds me... Kalashnikov reminds me of Album Photo in that he jumps 9 out of 10 of them low and efficiently, and then he puts in the odd clanger. That's the way Album Photo always was as a novice as well. Mm-hmm. It's not like a lost, some horses are exuberant to make mistakes. I hate those kind of horses for a Gold Cup. But if Kalashnikov has a good round in a Gold Cup, he'll have jumped all of them efficiently. And if he can rule out the odd mistake, he jumps so well when he does jump them well that I think he'd have a right chance. Like the trainers are worrying all this, but you're getting a massive price. I just think he could develop into that kind of a horse, but I'd say they're probably going to aim at the Ryanair. But if you can get 150 to 1 at Betfair or something,
what are you wasting? Exactly.
Yeah. She did say that the dream was to win the Ryanair, wasn't it?
The only one ever to say that, as you pointed out before, Dermo, I think. Just to tidy up then on this Bet Victor Gold Cup, I will echo what you say about Sky Pirates, Stephen, although I do think Creve Hill, who, it fell the last day, went away and won that race, would have been an interesting runner in this contest, and it's not lined up, was in the betting a few weeks ago and not there. So Sky Pirate was going to represent that bit of form, and I do think there's a bigger run in there than perhaps the prices belie. I'd also pick you up, Stephen, on the fact that St. Calvados, I think you said, definitely won't stay. I think the wind was everything about St. Calvados, and to me, Dost winning under a big weight 3 weeks ago when this race takes place, and I think St. Calvados is still going to take some beating. Now he might come up short because the big weight to lump round against some good horses.
I'd say he'll run, Dean. I'd say he'll run on Sunday in the Shloer, will he? Yeah. I think he was that, especially in the staying the 2.5 when it's heavy, or the 2.5 when it's heavy is going to be another, or soft. Sorry, it won't be heavy.
Ground might dictate that, but I got the impression from the trainer that this was the race they wanted to go and win.
I thought he was out on his feet now the last day. He'd be one now. I'd be very interested in coming to the last. He could be leading, and he'd be looking to place lay him at sharp prices, because I think he will not get up that hill. But we'll both find out soon enough. It's only 3 days away.
I hope he runs here. I really do.
Really out on his feet. Yeah. I hope he does as well, because he'll be making prices for the rest of them as well, and we'll have an interesting thing to look at. But I don't. He's 2 miler all over,
I think he's got a big chance, but that's what it's about, isn't it? We completely disagree on the horse. So he has to run now. Mr. Whittington, if you're listening, please settle this debate on Saturday and don't go fissing around with other races. Okay, so that one was the 225 on the Saturday. Let's have a look at the next race on Saturday's card. I mean, you could argue that is the feature of the weekend, of course, and it should be treated as such. So to find so many with chances in there is no surprise. I'm not that way inclined about the big bucks handicap hurdle, Stephen. To be fair, who is a remarkable animal for Deborah Hamer. Tom Bellamy will ride that. It's probably going to go off favourite here. Is priced up as such at the moment. And unless you found a dark one in here, it's not a race I'm that interested in, Stephen.
I didn't even look at it. No interest in this race, to be honest. Sorry.
No, similar. I echo.
Yeah, I did actually have one, but it shall be ridden by a Mr. David Maxwell, the finest jockey that ever did jump a hurdle, and it's Dolphin Square, who's about 8 to 1 there last time. Needed every single yard of that race. Again, you're going to need a horse here who absolutely wants it all day long. So to be fair, I can understand anyone backing him, but Dolphin Square is going to feel like he's running free with that horse in the race. David Maxwell gave an absolute peach of a ride last time to get up on the line. He needed every single yard of that 2 miles, 5.5 last time. So this trip will suit him absolutely perfectly, and he'll be the one for me. And I'm actually quite confident in him for that race.
Okay, Dolphin Square. Well, one view is as good as 3 nonsense views, to be honest. So that's good that you've landed on one. Does that lead him into a possible double then on the day? Because it looks like he'd be on the favourite in the 3:30, Dermo. This Jatilui.
Yeah, that was nearly as good as Eamon and Canuck. Eamon and Canuck, by the way, I just remembered it. That's a song, Eamon of the Hill, isn't it? But yeah. So just so everyone at home knows that we're not as bad as Irish here as we We pretended there. Falco.
I just remembered he says frantically googling it for the last 10 minutes.
I'm too busy frantically googling horse form, Stephen, to be looking at horse things. But
what song am I whistling to myself here?
Falco Blitz was a horse last time that I was really impressed by. Won very ease down. Nicky Henderson's horses have been kicking on from their first runs as well this season. So it was only at Fakenham, but he really put them away in the shape of a very smart horse. 8-1, if he is indeed running again, that famous line which we keep saying, if he does run, he's going to be much, much shorter than 8-1 on the day. I think this horse could well just be the best of these. I have no idea with the Irish horses whether like the Conran and stuff are coming over, but I think Falcon Blitz is will prove to be the very best of all these horses entered here.
Okay. Falco Blitz at what looks an enterprising price right now. Stephen, any views on that race? I mean, there could be a bit of Irish interest in there, as Dermo mentioned, likes of Comran, Peaches and Cream could come over. We don't know.
No, I have 2 more for Saturday. If I run through them now, because we're at the end of Saturday, but I have no opinion on that race.
Crack on.
In the bumper, Flying Risk, she won a Limerick bumper, beating a horse that was punted that day from 33s to 5-1 for Gordon Elliott. Since bought by Munir and Suede. There's a couple of hype horses. Lady Ishkara is in here. I don't think she'll be favourite. So Gordon sent them one over in the Munir and Suede colours. I'd say she could be an each way price. The 2nd, 3rd and 7th from that bumper, and Irish bumpers are way stronger than English bumpers. They've all won since, so I'd be interested in her. If she's 2-1, I'd be leaving her alone. If she's 5-1, I'd be having a good bet each way. That's Flying Risk in the bumper.
Okay.
And the other one is if the Big Getaway runs in the bumper on Saturday in Ireland, he seems a bit of a hype horse to me, and he might make the market for a horse called Easy Work, another one of Gordon's. He won a bumper down Royal, absolutely bolted up. So Easy Work. He'd be one now. You know, you get those money back second to the SB Favs. So you'd have Big Getaway favourite, then this guy. I'd be going around all the shops in town and putting your 20 euros on a few times to get those green bets on Sunday. So Easy Work in the bumper at Punchestown, but they'd be the 2 for Saturday.
Okay, we can't wrap up Saturday without talking about the Unibet Morgiana hurdle, which goes to post at 2 o'clock at Punchestown. I think remarkably, actually, it's Willie Mullins about to set a new training record with a ninth successive success in this race. I think likes of Aidan O'Brien and some superstar trainers have won races 7 and 8 times in a row. This, I think, would be a new record. Classical Dream is going to head the market there, Damo.
Yeah, it's the move on him as well has been kind of telling. He's 2-1 on now, obviously, for this. Myself, I'd be very interested in Saldier, but this is more of a race that you just have to be very excited about seeing how all these horses are. But, you know, there's only 5 runners. It's disappointing from a quantity point of view, but if those first 3 turn up, it'll be very interesting to see, because Sharjah for me is like those boxers that I keep talking about. He's your stepping stone fighter that you have to beat to announce yourself as a contender. So Classical Dream and Saldier hopefully will both be there, and they're 2 horses that I'm really excited about. But I'm on Saldier now again this season, as I keep talking about, and I think he could turn over the favourite if they're both on an even kill.
Saldier, the hipster horse for the season, Stephen.
Yeah, he is. And look, I can see it because myself and Dermo last year both absolutely loved Espartella and all season, just loved him. And the form is there with Espartella, and they look like they were going to get a race with Nace. Now, I think Espartella improved subsequently at Limerick, especially his turn of foot from the back of the last end. Cheltenham, he would have beaten him. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Maybe he wouldn't. But my issue with Saldier is he's 12-14-1, but he doesn't get to the racetrack very often, so I'd hate to be back in the anti-post. I could see why you would, but I'd want to be back in him non-runner, no bet at 7s or 8s rather than going down that route at 12s, 14s. Yep. I know last year it was a broken nose. Fair enough, but the year before he was a big talking horse. I was told to back him for the Triumphant, did at 50-1 before he ever ran, but he barely ran that season. Now, he was good at Punchestown and stuff, but he doesn't get to the track enough for me as an anti-post proposition. Classical Dream, I don't know what to make of him, because he looks, I hate the way he does this low head thing. Duvan used to do it back in his early career as well, but he could be a total machine, but there's just something about the way he carries himself I don't like. So I'll be looking to take him on later, but I think he will win on Saturday. I'd be surprised if they're on Saturday against him. Okay. Unless they're just getting fit. And I'd say if they are, it'll just be a spin to get Saturday fit. He'll finish second with 6 lengths or something like that.
Okay. Well, we might learn a little bit about the pecking order. We might not in that Morgiana. We'll see if they all line up. It might be a small field, but it is high on quality. If they do turn up, let's take a look then at Sunday, shall we? We'll kick off with that the Arkle Trial. Novices Chase. Getaway Trump versus Al Dancer Mark II, Stephen. A lot of people took Getaway Trump as the one to take out at the time when they met last time out. I can understand that, but I do expect Al Dancer to confirm that form, but I might be on my own.
I would expect Al Dancer to confirm the form, but I'm not a huge fan of the form itself, and I'd probably just chance Rouge Vif at 5-1. Like, he beat Getaway Trump convincingly last year. He's beaten a lot of good horses last year. He was third in an entry grade 1 to Felix Deji. I think that form is better than that the other two have. So, and I was very impressed with his debut at Market Race. He jumped super. Yeah. I think he is a quick horse. 2 miles is a trip. So I would chance Rouge Vif at 5s if he runs. But again, you know, it's will he run? But if they all show up in the day and he's 5-6-1, I'd definitely be chancing Rouge Vif.
Okay, so I'd imagine it's up to then whether Rouge Vif turns up, because the other two are jocked up, Dermo, and Getaway Trump and Al Dancer both look fully committed to this contest. They seem to almost want to have this rivalry, Twiston and Nichols, with these two. And at the early season aims at the Arkle rather than what horses we might see a bit later on.
Yeah, well, like, they are two of the most bullish trainers that there is. So it's you have to love when these two set their sights on each other. But I'm not mad about the form. I didn't like Al Dancer last year. I didn't like Getaway Trump. I can see the complete angle with Rouge Vif, but it's just interesting that Henry de Bromhead has Aidan Coleman jocked up there and put the kettle on. At the moment, there is the runners. I don't think we'll actually have the 8 runners, so I'd be happy to back that horse each way now, because it does look like he's running. Henry de Bromhead loves having runners at this meeting. Last time was a decent second behind Robin DiCarlo. This is a horse who has beaten Gypsy Island, albeit it was over hurdles, obviously, and that horse went on to be a machine again afterwards. But like, behind her last time at Tipperary, you've got the likes of Moon Over Germany, you've got the likes of Dandy Mag, Brahma Bull. Like, that's a decent race, and I don't have the likes of those horses like Moon Over Germany that far behind Al Dancer. Like, I don't think Al Dancer is that good a horse, and I don't think Getaway Trump is either. So I'm more than happy to completely shirk that form, and I think the likes of a Rouge Vif, but I'll be backing Put the Kettle On, and hopefully he can do the business.
Okay. I mean, we may see Brewing Up a Storm in there, as well as a couple of those. Henry's got 2 entered, so we could end up with a decent sized field for it. My angle in this would probably be playing Al Dancer to beat Getaway Trump, and I don't care who wins then, but we'll see how that plays out on Sunday. That's the Arkle Trial. The race that I'm really looking forward to on Sunday is the Slur Chase. Slur Chase. And obviously I'm hoping that St. Calvados doesn't go here, but he might do. Stephen, Defi Desoy, we talked a little bit earlier on the podcast about how strong all that form was from last year with Lost in Translation. He actually ran into the back end of Chaka and Poursoir at Punchestown as well. I mean, is there a horse with better form, 6 years old, dual Cheltenham winner in the game? This horse is pretty special.
Yeah, he's a super horse, and I think him and Lost in Translation were both fabulous last season, and that was showing out. But I'm not sure 2 miles is his trip, you know. And his last 3 seasonal reappearances, he'd been beaten 17 lengths, 25 lengths, and 17 lengths. So I would really, really be looking to take him on over 2 miles, back off a break. It's just not his conditions at all. I think Defi Desoy, if you watch the JLT back, Lost in Translation, looked like he was going to beat him come to the last, but Defi put the head down and battled. I'd be, you know, almost trying to make a 3 miler of him rather than a 2 miler, because again, at Punchestown he was showing that 2 miles wasn't his thing at all when Chaka and Poursoir destroyed him. Wouldn't fancy him at all over 2. You have to remember Defi Desoy was a disappointing horse as well, 2 seasons ago and 3 seasons ago, so it's not to say he won't show in a stinker as well. You know, you always have that in his locker. So I'd be very, very wary now backing him at a sharp price on Sunday.
Okay, big negative. Demo.
I completely agree with him. I'd be looking to take on Defi Desoy all day long. I think Sorial won this last year. He's only £4 higher than he was last year as well. He ran an absolute blinder in that Queen Mother Champion Chase. I think he is the common sense pick. I think he's every bit as good as Politologue, and he's been here, he's done it. So I think Score Royale is the common sense pick in an interesting race.
I feel rather put off now by you lads, but definitely Desoy's mine out for the weekend. It's great having Stephen on. We'll be back in my place.
Sorrel and Politolog have both won their first start of the season for the last 3 seasons. Now, Politolog would probably prefer the ground going softer if it's going to go that way, but Sorrel is fine on soft ground as well. If you watch the Queen Mother, you'd definitely say Sorrel was going to win. This is going to come down to tactics. So for Politolog to win, I think he's going to have to do his front-running thing and hope that they take the sting out of Sorrel, presuming right about Defi Desoy. So if it comes down to the two of them, and if first run of the season, the Tingle Creek is the target for almost all of these horses, except for Sorrel. I think they're not going to go gung-ho on Politolog. The Tingle Creek will be in the back of their mind. I think it's just going to set it up for Sorrel, and 3-1 is a great bet.
Yeah, it's a cracking bet. Yeah,
I think he'll win.
Yeah.
I think Defi will win this quite comfortably. I wouldn't worry about first time up last year because everything was about just restoring this horse to health, and they did. Remember the Hobbs Yard were in such a Horlicks for a very long period of time, which really affected Defi, and I'd imagine every piece of the form that he has in the book from last year will probably be good enough, even at this 2 miles. I don't mind if there's also a decent bit of rain there, because I think that will also...
how good a horse is this fella over 2.5? Oh, like he'll have to be a 165 horse over 2 on Sunday, and he's probably just a 165 horse at his optimum trip. I just think the trip's going to beat him on Sunday.
Yeah, the same, Dean. Yeah.
Nah, I disagree. I think 2, 2.5, and probably go up to 3. You're talking about horses won at 2 Cheltenham festivals, came back from the sickness of the Hobbs Yard. He could be. You've got an 8-year-old in Politolog who is exactly what he is: gallant, superb, high-rating number horse. So Royale puts it in when he fancies. Really, I think he can be. Definitely be taken on. I understand why you might go for him based on targets, and this might be the one for him. I think if Defi is fit, which I'd imagine he will be for this, I think he'd take a bit of beating. So I'm happy to play, but that's the game. I will be playing Defi Desoy, and you can all put me.
Your enthusiasm was definitely tempered there, though, wasn't it?
Well, you all put me off. I'm still going to do it. In fact, I'm probably going to go harder. No, joke. All right, let's look at the Greatwood, the other big feature really of the weekend at this Cheltenham meeting. Horse I really like in here and have backed anti-post. Cards on the table is Cantista for Nicky Henderson, still around double figure prices. I thought Gumball really impressed and was back. Like defeat was out of the question last time, so good to see Hobbsy have a big chance in this race, a race that he's done well in the past. But a few of these trainers will fancy their chances. Fergal, Brian Dermo, as you said, firing in winners everywhere. Benny's Bridge looks like if it turns up here, we'll go favourite.
Yeah, and actually got away quite lightly last time, didn't it? It is up £10, but that was better than that performance. I thought the horse won very, very well. But the one now, biggest warning has to be sent out here in the whole world is that I've never backed the winner of the Greatwood ever in all my years of punting. I've never.
It's due then.
It has to fall right eventually, but it's a race I've just never made sense of. But the horse here that I think is absolutely thrown in is Humble Hero, absolutely purely based on that run last season behind Bright Forecast, who went on to be third in the Ballymore. Gave an absolute humdinger. Last time fell was kind of just wasn't his race, but that felt like a warm up for this. The money is starting to pour in for him now. He's always been a smart horse, and he's running here of 131 in a race that he's more than good enough to win in. The money is definitely would fill you full of confidence, but just that run last season behind a Bright Forecast, I put him down as a horse to follow. They kind of kept him quiet then there afterwards, really. This looks like a real targeted assault by the Skeletons, who obviously have previous in this race, and at 8-1 or so I think he's a cracking bet.
Humble Hero, pretty strong view there on the Greatwood from Dermo. Stephen, over to you.
I think Dermo makes a better case. I'd probably roll in with him. I don't have a very, very strong opinion, but Keldistan is a horse I absolutely love. Now, they might have butchered his chance by going up £7 the last day, because if he was running off 142 with soft ground, Harry Cobden is up. I just love this horse. I love his attitude. I'd forget his run in the Triumph, because he had 6 runs going into the Triumph, and 6 hard runs where they were always making the running with him. Now they can settle him wherever they want. He's off 149 now. It's going to be a hard ass for a 4-year-old, but Nichols has won this twice in the last 10 years with 4-year-olds. I just chance him at 10s, whatever price he'll be, win only, because I don't think it's much of a race, and I do think this guy could be a late 150s horse. I really, really like him, and if you watch the Triumph, I do think he himself and Pentland Hills look like they were the two you'd pick out when they swung in. And I think Keldastan was just showing the effects of a hard season. I think he's the kind of horse he just always keeps surprising them. He doesn't win by much, but until they get to the bottom of him, I'll always want to be on side with them. So I'll chance Keldastan at 10s.
Okay, Keldastan then for Stephen. Countista, as I mentioned, I've already backed. Have to remember that the only run, obviously it ran at Fairyhouse in April, but came back to run behind Cheetah at Cheltenham, only beaten a length and 3/4. I think 141 is going to be a massive underestimation of where Countista will end up. I don't expect they'll be running to get fit or anything like that, so I'd like to see a bit of market move in there. At 12s right now, Countista I think is one of my better bets of the weekend. Just turns up fit and firing. There is one more race on the Sunday that we might have a look at before we do move to anything else section, and that one is the 3:30. It's the Supreme Trial Novices Hurdle. Used to be known as the Sharp, the Grade 2, Dermo.
Yeah, if any of these horses actually go on to win the Supreme, I'll be unbelievably shocked.
That's fair.
It just looks a dour enough affair. The one, if I was really going to my head, if I had to back one, it would be a Scardora of Neil Mulholland's. I was impressed with him last time at Taunton when he beat Bathsheba Boy of Paul Nichols, who was well backed into second favouritism that day, and Dusky Hercules in behind him as well. But it's a race that if I happen to be having a very good day, I'll row in behind him, but if I'm not, I'll be more than happy to just leave it.
More than likely I'll be done by this time on Sunday. But Stephen, did you have anything in that? And if you don't, that's fine, and you can move on to your Dundalk.
I sort of don't. If Eden Dahu runs here, I'd be interested in him. Like, he's 8-1 for this, he's 14s for the other race. If he's, it depends what price he is once declared, but if he's bigger than 5-1, I would definitely back him.
Okay. Eden Dahu then for that 3:30 on Sunday, should he turn up there for David Pipe. Okay, Stephen, before we do get to kind of naps and anything else, I know Dundalk is on, and people want to know what you fancy for a bit of Friday action.
It's always hard at the entry stage because you don't know what's going to run really, but there's two I'd kind of point out. Bold Approach in the 7:15. He's a dawn approach horse over 10 furlongs. Trip would be ideal for him. He was a little far from the last day, I think. He was a drifter the last day in a handicap, and he actually finished a close-up fourth. It was a really good race. The handicap has given him a big chance. He ran off 93. This is the horse that ran second or third in a Tyros. Jim always runs his good 2-year-old in the Tyros Stakes at Leopardstown. He ran Teofilo there. He ran Dawn Approach there, or New Approach. He'd be one to watch. Bold Approach in the 7:15. Jim's horses are flying, so I'd be hopeful they can be aggressive enough on him if he gets a good draw, if he runs. And the other one, she could be a wild price now. Romantically is the name of the horse. She went off 25-1 last week. She was a bit of a drifter. A Camelot filly. She'd been running over a mile, upped her to 1.5 miles the last day behind Tartlet, who was on a bit of a run. She wasn't beaten far behind the second, third and fourth horse, if you know what I mean. Tartlet bolted up, but Romantically travelled really, really well into the race. It was her first handicap off 61. She runs off 60 this Friday, second run in the handicap. McCreary, a genius with fillies, and she's back down to 1.2 miles, which I think will be more her trip, looking at the way she travelled very strongly the last day. She could be a price, and I chance her. So the two would be Bold Approach in the 7:15 and Romantically in the 7:45.
Lovely bit of action covered there at Dundalk on Friday. Does anyone have anything else they want to mention before we do get to the nap stage?
Yeah, well, obviously Battle Over Dying looks like he'll be taking in the Florida Pearl on the Sunday, which is very interesting because it does look like he's going up to 3 miles, and that Sam Crow will remain around the 2-mile 4. Which obviously would scupper your early season bets team, but again, there's plenty of times for all that to flip over, obviously. But I think Battle Over Dying is the 3-miler there. That's very interesting. And just one that I forgot to mention, on Saturday, Notebook will probably open up short in the Craddockstown at Punchestown, but I was actually really impressed with what Eclair de Buffo did the last day. He will have needed that first run badly, and I would half fancy him to actually turn that form around with Notebook.
Okay. Dermo, do you want to give us your nap of the weekend for our listeners? We're on a little bit of a roll with the tipping, so loads of pressure.
Absolutely bags of pressure, and it's not easy whatsoever to try and narrow down all that racing to a nap. If he runs, I'm going to just caveat this, if he runs, Potter's Legend would be my nap on the Friday. I think he's going to run an absolute blinder. If he doesn't, So Royale.
So Royale again. Okay. Thanks, Dermot. Stephen, away you go. Give us. You don't have to just give us one if you want. There was plenty of racing to discuss.
I was going to give you one, and it was going to be the same race, and then it's going to say in my head, it's like, oh, he's tipping Potter's Legend. Okay, I'll nap So Royale. So he's really.
That's okay. That's podcast charging. That's all right.
Yeah. If I was to give you one, I would have given Big River at the price in the same race as Potter's Legend. But look. Yeah, Big River or So Royale, whichever.
Okay, I like Big River. So, you can back two in these contests. They're fair prices. Deffy is one of my best bets of the weekend. I was just taking on your other one as well. So, contrast of opinions. My nap, though, just to keep it clean and go elsewhere, will be Countista in the Great Wood at 12. So why not go for the hardest puzzle to solve? All right, chaps. Thanks, Stephen Cass, for joining us on the Race Hour, brought to you with bookmakers.co.uk. Thanks to Dermot Nolan, and thanks to Alex on production. Been a pleasure to have you all with us.
Cheers, Dean.
Thanks, Dean.
You've been listening to the Race Hour, brought to you by bookmakers.co.uk, your best bet for tips, news and bookmaker reviews.